So hello, everyone. My name is Danielle. I am the National Director of Volunteer Engagement here at JDRF. And I would like to welcome you and thank you all for coming to tonight's education series. And so on behalf of myself and JDRF, I'd like to invite you to, or I'd like to welcome you to our Let's Talk T1D educational series. We are really excited to present you with more information on sensor-based continuous glucose monitoring and virtual care with our event partner, Abbott Canada. JDRF is a global leader working towards an end to type 1 diabetes through both research, funding, and advocacy. JDRF also supports people and families in the type 1 community from the time of diagnosis by helping those living with T1D to have better, healthier, and safer lives while we work to find a cure. And so without further ado, residing in Vancouver, British Columbia, I would like to introduce Amrit Malkin, who has been a member of the Abbott team for the past 2 years. She joined the team to assist with the launch of the Freestyle Libre system and is currently a diabetes sales specialist. With over 20 years of experience in the diabetes and health sector, Amrit forged an impressive career working with the diabetes community, where she's offered advice for diabetes management as a registered dietitian, certified diabetes educator, and an insulin pump trainer. She continued to work in the diabetes space when she transitioned to pharmaceutical sales 10 years ago, and now works to demonstrate the benefits of the Freestyle Libre flash glucose monitoring system to healthcare partners across the Greater Vancouver area. And the question that Amrit is asked most about the Freestyle Libre system is, can you use the Freestyle Libre sensor to make treatment decisions when using insulin? And so without further ado, I would like to pass it over now to Amrit. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I'm going to share my slides. So the first part of our presentation is going to be on flash glucose monitoring and sensor technology in general. And then we'll be moving into taking a little bit of a closer look on the Freestyle Libre 2, which just launched last week, and we're very excited about that. And I'm sure you're interested in hearing some more information about that as well. So the Freestyle Libre flash glucose monitoring system is indicated for measuring interstitial glucose levels in adults aged 18 years of age and older with diabetes. The Freestyle Libre 2 system now allows us to reach a greater number of people, as it's approved for people aged 4 years of age and older. It's always a good idea to read and follow the label and the insert. Our goals for today are to introduce you to the benefits of flash glucose monitoring and virtual care, and to answer all of your questions so that you become more comfortable with sensor technology and the value that it can offer you in your management. To start off, I think it's really important to have an understanding of the difference between traditional blood glucose monitoring and sensor-based glucose monitoring. Both systems are just as accurate. It's just that the medium that they're measuring the glucose in is different. So with a traditional blood glucose monitor, where we see a picture, with the reading of 5.8, that number is representing the glucose concentration in the capillary, in the blood. And we're just given that one moment in time. We're not given any information about, anything else, just that one moment. Now, with flash glucose monitoring, or with sensor technology in general, we're actually given the glucose data that we're receiving is the glucose concentration in the interstitial fluid. That's what ISF stands for. So you'll also notice with sensor technology that, we're given that glucose concentration in that interstitial fluid of 6.2, but we're also given information about where our glucose is headed, indicated by that trend arrow, and also where we've been over that past 8-hour period by that graph on the bottom. And we'll be talking more about that as we go through the presentation. So just taking a little bit of a deeper dive, we can see that with traditional blood glucose monitoring machines, a lancet is inserted into the skin with pressure to reach the blood in the capillary system. Now, with sensor technology, where a thin filament is applied under the skin, And we're measuring the glucose concentration in that interstitial fluid. So you can see by these blue circles, that glucose always goes up first in that capillary system, and then it diffuses into that interstitial space. And that's what sensor technology is measuring. This concept or this process of how glucose moves from the capillary system into that interstitial space is captured by this concept of lag time. And lag time is illustrated really nicely with a picture or a concept of a train where, as we mentioned, glucose always goes up first in the capillary. So we can think of our blood glucose as the front of the train, seen by that red car. Whereas sensor technology, it's always lagging a little bit behind. And so that would be illustrated by that blue car at the back of the train. So first thing in the morning, there's very little difference between that front of the train, that capillary glucose concentration, and that interstitial glucose level. And that's illustrated by that arrow going straight across. Now, after a meal that has carbohydrates in it, it makes sense that the capillary glucose is going to be higher than where that interstitial glucose level is. So that trend arrow is going to be pointing upward. On the flip side, let's say with exercise, we're going to have that trend arrow pointing downward where that capillary glucose in this instance is going to be lower than that interstitial glucose concentration. So really focusing on not just the number, but where that trend arrow is going is going to give you more information about your overall picture of where you're at that moment in time. We're now going to take a closer look at the Freestyle Libre system.
Imagine diabetes without finger pricks. What would this mean for you? With a simple scan of the sensor, the Freestyle Libre flash glucose monitoring system eliminates the need for finger pricks, giving you the freedom to pursue your passion. What would you do with a little more freedom? Find your freedom. Talk to your healthcare professional or visit freestylelibre.ca today.
So the Freestyle Libre system really liberates you from the hassles of glucose monitoring. The system is very easy to apply and it's worn for up 14 days. It's very comfortable, it's very discreet, it's the size of a toonie. You're able to scan through clothing and it captures all of your glucose data and is really able to capture trends and give you an overall picture of your glycemic control through very easy to interpret reports. The system uses a phone app as well as a reader. Now, with the phone app, it's free. It's available through the App Store or on Google Play if you have an Android phone. So the phone app makes it especially easy for you to be able to connect with your healthcare professional through LibreView. So in this next video, we'll be watching how the Freestyle Libre system is applied. It's a very quick video and I'll try to keep up with it. So here we see this young lady, she's opening the package. We're first cleaning the back of the arm with soap and water, using the alcohol wipe to then wash the skin, allowing it to dry, opening up the sensor package, the applicator, placing the two together, and that simply applying it to the arm. And that's all there is to it, just like that. Now, the application of the Freestyle Libre 2 system is exactly the same. So now, once the sensor is actually applied, it needs to be activated. And this can be done by holding the reader or the phone within 4 centimeters of the sensor. If you're using an iPhone, you'd want to activate the sensor by using the top of the phone, whereas if you're using an Android phone, you would activate the sensor where this lady's hand is using the back of the phone. After the sensor is activated, there's a 60-minute warm-up period. After the 60-minute warm-up period, you can scan as many times as you like. So the sensor is picking up glucose data every minute. So in theory, you can scan 1,440 times a day. With that first scan, you'll be given that interstitial glucose reading, as well as that trend arrow. And then as time passes, that 8-hour trend graph will fill up with the data. So the actual sensor holds information for 8 hours. So in theory, if you were scanning 3 times a day, 8 hours apart, you would capture all of the information that your sensor was picking up throughout the day. But the research supports that the more frequently people are scanning and looking at their glucose data, the better their glycemic control is. So that really understanding how your food choices, how your exercise are impacting your glycemic control allows us to adjust our behavior so that we can really try to spend as much time as possible within that target range, which is illustrated by that green band for that 8-hour trend graph. So as we've been talking throughout this presentation, it's not just about the number with sensor technology. It's about looking at all of the information that's on the screen. So, we talked about how that number is representing the glucose concentration in the interstitial fluid. We talked about the importance of the trend arrow, really illustrating to us where we're heading in the future, and how that 8-hour glucose graph shows us where we've been, and trying to spend as much time as possible within that target range, which is usually set between 4 and 10. We also have glucose messages to help us support us to stay within that target range. And so when we are in that target range between 4 and 10, the background colors are green. When we're below or having a low glucose, below 3.9, that background color would then change to red. There's also yellow and orange if we're out of that target range. So there's a variety of different digital health tools to really support you with your diabetes management and help to optimize your care. So we discussed the Freestyle Libre Link phone app that, with the easy to read reports allows you to easily connect with your healthcare professional. There's also the Libre Linkup app. So this is really excellent for caregivers so that they can remotely monitor their loved ones' glucose readings throughout the day. And then there's also Libre View, which allows you to connect very easily with your healthcare professional so they can really support you with your diabetes management and optimizing your care. So we're now going to take a little bit of a closer look at the Freestyle Libre 2, and as I mentioned, it's just launched last week and is very exciting. So the Freestyle Libre 2, in terms of what it actually looks like, it's exactly the same as the current Freestyle Libre. The exciting or newer aspects of it is that it now has optional real-time alarms that are very easy to use. It's also able to reach a wider range of people now that it's indicated for people with diabetes ages 4 years of age and older. And it also has an updated algorithm where no confirmatory finger pokes are required for treatment decisions, even if glucose is low, falling, or rapidly changing. It still lasts for 14 days, and it picks up on glucose data every minute. Now, please make note that the Freestyle Libre 2 has its own phone app. And so you'll notice if you try to download the Freestyle Libre app that you have two choices. So if you are using the Freestyle Libre 2 sensor, you'll need the Freestyle Libre 2 app. The two systems are separate, they're exclusive. You cannot use one sensor, you have to use exclusively the Freestyle Libre 2 sensor with the Freestyle Libre 2 app, similarly with the other system. So there are just 3 alarms. It's very straightforward. They're very easy to use. There is a low glucose alarm that can be set anywhere between 3.3 and 5.6. There is a high glucose alarm that can be set anywhere between 6.7 and 22.2. And then there's also a signal. There's also a signal loss alarm. So in order for the alarms to function, the phone needs to be within 6 meters of the actual sensor. Now, the alarms the default for the alarms are on when you initially start, but you can choose to have the alarms on or off, whichever suits your management and preferences best. So with regards to the signal loss alarm, there's a 20-minute buffer time. So let's say I was sitting at my desk and I had to go to the washroom and I didn't want to take my phone with me. So as long as I came back within a 20-minute period, everything would continue seamlessly. Now, let's say I met a friend on the way back from the washroom and I was gone longer than 20 minutes. At that moment in time, once I passed that 20-minute period, the phone would alert to indicate that there was a signal loss between my phone and the actual sensor. So all of the actual sensors, they work on a 1-minute alarm and a 5-minute snooze period. So for the low glucose and the high glucose alarms, that 1-minute, 5-minute cycle would carry on continuously until the user actually scanned the sensor. For the signal loss alarm, that 1-minute, 5-minute cycle would carry on for six cycles, but after 30 minutes, if I still hadn't returned, that signal loss alarm would turn off and leave a notification for me on the phone, just letting me know that I would need to repair my sensor with the actual phone. So the tagline for the Freestyle Libre 2 is all about alarm, scan, act. So, as soon as a user passes that low glucose threshold or that high glucose threshold, the phone will alarm. And in order to turn that alarm off, the user has to scan the sensor. And so once they've scanned the sensor, they then are provided with the glucose data, and then they act on that glucose data. So alarm, scan, act. How the alarms work is through Bluetooth technology. And that Bluetooth technology is working 24/7, regardless of whether the person is scanning or not. So as soon as that sensor is, senses on a minute-to-minute basis that they have passed that low or high threshold, that alarm would indicate that they're out of range, their desired range. In terms of the gathering the glucose data, the Freestyle Libre 2 continues to be a flash glucose monitoring system and uses near field technology. And we mentioned before the importance of scanning, at least once every 8 hours to capture that glucose data, but how it's really encouraged to scan more frequently throughout the day. And the more frequently we're scanning and really tuning into how our food choices and exercise are impacting our glycemic control, the better outcomes we're going to have. So, here we see an illustration. So let's say we set our low glucose threshold to 3.9. As soon as that sensor picks up on the fact that we've dropped below that, that alarm would sound. And the low glucose alarm as well as the high glucose alarm are indicated by dashed lines, where we see the high glucose alarm has an orange dashed line and the low glucose alarm has a red dashed line. So I just want to also make note that the Freestyle Libre 2 is an app first launch. So as of now, a reader is coming in the future, but as of this moment, because it is available in all pharmacies, it's, you will need to either have an iPhone 7 or higher or an Android 8 or higher because of that Bluetooth capability that's required for the alarms. So that brings us to the end of our overview of flash glucose monitoring in general and the Freestyle Libre 2. And we'd love to answer any of your questions. We also have our medical expert, Maha Saadeh, on the line with me. And she'll also be able to help answer your questions with me.
That's great. Thank you so much, Amrit. So we do have a few questions here from the chat, and I do believe that you have addressed this one, but I'll just go through it again just in case there's any more info. Jennifer wanted to know if the reader works only on a phone, if the readings work on a phone or also work on a reader.
So the current Freestyle Libre works on the reader as well as an iPhone 7 or higher and an Android 5 or higher. The Freestyle Libre 2 is currently only available if you have an iPhone 7 or higher or an Android 8 or higher. So the real difference with the Freestyle Libre 2 is that a reader is not available right at this moment. It's coming in the future, but for now it's just available on the phone, and that you need to have that Android 8 for it.
Thank you. And Caitlin asks if you can use more than one device to check your blood glucose.
So that's a really good question. Now, with the current Freestyle Libre, you can use a reader as long as you pair the reader with the sensor first, and you can also use a phone app. With the Freestyle Libre 2, you have to, you have to choose which system you want to work. So use whether it's the reader that should be coming in the future or with the current phone. In most cases, really it can be used with one device. So if you want to actually see somebody else's data as a caregiver, then you can connect with that person's glycemic control using the Libre Linkup app. So that's the real value of that Libre Linkup app. And so, it's still only, in terms of scanning, it's just available on one device. But that Libre Linkup app will allow caregivers to look after their, to see their loved ones remotely.
Great. And Paul would like to know if the Libra 1 is being phased out.
So because the Freestyle Libre 2 just launched last week, the coverage for the Freestyle Libre 2 at this moment in time, it isn't from a third-party perspective, it isn't as good as the current Freestyle Libre coverage. So both are going to remain available in the marketplace until we can get that coverage up to speed with the current Freestyle Libre.
Great. And Jennifer asks, and if you know, when is a reader for the Freestyle Libre 2 expected to come to market?
We're working on it, so it should be shortly.
Great. And are you able to review the types of apps that are available, including the Linkup?
So there's two phone apps that are available. So there's the Libre Link app, and that's what you would use to scan your sensor. And then there's the Libre Linkup app, and that's for caregivers to be able to monitor their loved ones remotely. And so in terms of finding those apps, if you went into the App Store, or for an iPhone or to Google Play for an Android phone, if you just put in Freestyle, that's the first, right away you will see the apps pop up. So it's very easy to find. It's not like you have to search through, it's difficult to find them. You just put Freestyle into the search bar and it's the first thing that pops up.
Great. And Mary would like to know if it's possible that data from the Libre 1 app might be migrated over to the Libre 2 app.
So, that's great. That's a great question. And, so thank you for bringing that up. I should have mentioned this. So if your healthcare professional is, you're connecting with your healthcare professional using your current Freestyle Libre app, as long as you use the same username and password with your Freestyle Libre 2 app, it will be a seamless connection with your healthcare professional. So, just use the same username and password with your Freestyle Libre 2 app, and it should be seamless.
Great. And is the Libre 2 available in Quebec?
Yes, it is. It's been launched nationally. It's available throughout Canada.
And do you still require finger pricks before making decisions?
So I think that's one of the exciting parts.
Mauvais ou malade? Oui, je ne mange pas bien. Je ne mange pas bien.
If we could ask everyone to kindly mute, that would be great, please. And it's finger pricks if you still need to do a finger prick.
Okay, I'm sorry, thank you. So the lag time with the Freestyle Libre 2 is now approximately 2 minutes. So with the Freestyle Libre 2, no confirmatory finger pricks are required for treatment decisions, even if glucose is low, falling, or rapidly changing. Now, of course, if you ever feel differently than what your sensor is telling you, right? So, you feel a bit off and you do a scan and you feel differently than the information that you're getting from your scan, it's always a good idea to double check. And Maha, maybe you want to speak to that?
I would have said the same. So with the Freestyle Libre 1, because I don't have still the experience with the Freestyle Libre 2. So if the blood sugar is dropping really fast, let's say your blood sugar is around six-ish, and you see like arrows going down, it's good to double check to make sure you're not already in hypoglycemia. Or if you're having hypoglycemia symptoms, but the scan doesn't give you the hypoglycemia, but you're feeling your own hypoglycemia symptoms, it's better to check also. So those are the situation to just make sure.
Thank you. And if you can speak to this, Janice would like to know if the Libre 2 will work with the Mio Mio 1 and 2.
The Meow Meow is not approved to be used with the Freestyle Libre system.
Okay. And Noelle would like to know when the Libre 2 will be available in Ontario.
Naomi, it's available now. Go to your pharmacy, go pick it up.
Great. And can multiple Linkup apps for multiple caregivers be used at the same time?
Yes.
Great. And if you know this as well, because I know it's still coming, as you've mentioned, but will the scanner be able to connect to Wi-Fi and connect with the Caregiver Linkup app?
In order to use the Linkup app, you will need to be using a phone device.
Great. And just in case anyone is wondering, I know there's a couple questions about coverage, but because that does differ provincially, we are not going to be able to answer those questions in this kind of group session here. But Jennifer would like to know, what is the lag time on the Freestyle 1 system?
The lag time on the Freestyle 1 system is 4.5 minutes, whereas the Freestyle Libre 2 system, it's now approximately 2 minutes.
Great. Okay, and so those are all of the questions that we currently have right now that are in the chat. If anyone has any more questions, we definitely have time. I see a couple coming in here, but if you do want to ask a question, please definitely get those into the chats. And Leslie would like to know, is the Libre affected by electromagnetic fields? For example, for individuals who may work in an electromagnetic environment.
So in terms of X-rays, CT scans, MRIs, you would want to remove your Freestyle Libre sensor. You know, in terms of specific environments for working, I'm not, I guess it would be on a case-by-case basis, and I'm not quite sure about the details of where you're working.
Sure. And do you know if you can go through an airport scanner with the device in?
An airport scanner is fine. You just walk right through.
Great. And Paul would like to know, can we still request the Libre 1 rather than Libre 2?
Absolutely. You know, both are available for you, and they are both priced the same. So if you are a cash payer, they are both priced the same in the pharmacy.
Great. And Janice would like to know, when the reader comes out, will they be able to get readings on both the reader and on the phone app?
Not for the Freestyle Libre 2. For the Freestyle Libre 2, you'll have to choose either the reader or the phone.
Great. And Kevon would like to know, on the current Libre, the sensor reading is less accurate in the first few hours of being inserted. Has this changed at all with the Libre 2?
There's always going to be that initial warm-up period. And so, you know, when that sensor is first inserted under the skin, it takes, you know, in that warm-up period, that first 60-minute warm-up period, it gets used to being in that interstitial space. But as sensor technology and the algorithm improves, you know, that accuracy is improving as well in that first 24 to 48 hours. But it is correct that, you know, as you wear the sensor and it gets used to your system, you know, the accuracy of the sensor improves.
Great. And Karen would like to know, will more Android 8 and higher phones be added? The current phone is an Android 10, but it's not compatible according to the website as of yet.
You know, I think that brings up a great point. So, you know, there is so much variety in terms of the number of the operating systems that people are using. And so referring to the website, so myfreestyle.ca is an incredible resource. There's also a huge number of videos and, you know, resource materials for patients as well as healthcare professionals on that site.
Great. And if you use the Libre 2 reader, can you still use the same reader for blood testing and ketones?
The Freestyle Libre 2 reader will have that same capability as the current Freestyle Libre reader.
Great. All right, and so once again, I will put out if there are any more questions in the chat. We would definitely love to get to those questions. So maybe we'll give it a couple more seconds here. And Emery, while we wait to see, is there any final thoughts or anything else that you would you'd like to say before we conclude our session this evening?
You know, thank you so much for having us, Maha. Thank you so much for your medical expertise. It's a real pleasure to be here. The myfreestyle.ca website, like I said, it's a fantastic resource. There's tons of I think there's tons of resources there to answer your questions. And, thank you so much for taking the time to learn more about sensor technology and how it really can support you in managing your diabetes and optimizing your care.
Great. And I won't let you go quite yet because we do have a few people who have put those questions in. And Karen would like to know if the Libre 2 will use the same strips as the Libre 1.
Yes, it will be. So you'll be using the precision test strips.
Great. And Janice would like to know, she currently applies a new sensor the day before starting it. With this in mind, will the warm-up time of 60 minutes be reduced or unnecessary?
No, and I mean, I've seen that on chat lines, by putting the sensor in a day before, it's already used to the interstitial space once you activate it. So that 60-minute warm-up period, regardless of when you put that sensor in, that 60-minute warm-up period starts from when that sensor is activated.
Great. And then our last question tonight from Kevin, can you still swim with this sensor?
Absolutely.
Great. And actually, we have one last question that's come through since we still have a little time. Callie would like to know, she has a 3-year-old nephew who uses the Libre 1. Is eligibility based on age, weight, or something else?
It is based on age, and the Freestyle Libre 2 is approved for ages 4 years of age and older. So he's almost there.
Great. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much to everyone for joining us today, and a special thanks to our speaker Amrit. Thank you so much again for this amazing presentation and wonderful information. And I'd just like to send out a reminder for everyone to please check jdrf.ca for the latest updates on the upcoming Let's Talk T1D series. And a reminder that contact information will be sent to you tomorrow if you do have any questions. And this presentation will also be posted on our YouTube page, and the information on how to access that will be sent out as well. And a huge thank you to the sponsors of the Let's Talk T1D program, Dexcom, Insulet Canada, Medtronic, Novo Nordisk, Tandem Diabetes Care, and Ypsomed Canada, and tonight's partner, Abbott. Without them, this would not be possible. And so we really hope that you found this talk informative and engaging. And once again, thank you so much to everyone from Abbott. Thank you, Amrit, and thank you everyone for joining. It's been a pleasure. Have a wonderful end to your day, everyone.